Welcome to Killer Women with your host, bestselling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Vanessa Lillie. Vanessa is the USA Today best-selling author of Blood Sisters, a new series centered on the stories of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, which was a Target Book Club pick and GMA Book Club Buzz Pick, as well as a Best Mystery of the Year from the Washington Post, Amazon Editors, and Reader's Digest. The sequel, The Bone Thief,
There
will
we
be
go.
released October 28th. Her other best-selling thrillers are Little Voices, For the Best, and she's the creator and co-author of the #1 Audible Charts bestseller and International Thriller Writers Award-nominated Young Rich Widow series set in Providence, Rhode Island, where she lives. Originally from Miami, did I do that right?
Miami, yeah.
Miami, Oklahoma. She's a proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Danielle. It's so nice to be here with you. I'm
Nice to
honored.
have you back. I know your hometown is spelled Miami, and I always know it's not Miami. It's not pronounced Miami.
That muh at the end.
Muh,
Muh.
Miami. Yeah, that's new for us. So before we get into all the exciting and fun things, questions I have about this fabulous second book, tell our listeners a little bit about The Bone Thief.
Yeah, so The Bone Thief picks up pretty quick actually after Blood Sisters leaves off. And our main character, Sid Walker, so she's an archaeologist for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. She primarily works with the Narragansett tribe. And she gets a mysterious phone call that some remains have been found at a rich kid camp. And she shows up, and indeed, they're tied to a real historical tragedy within the Narragansett tribe. And then pretty quickly, those remains are stolen. And then she finds out there is a teenage girl who's gone missing from the tribe, and she has ties to not only the camp, but really a secret society that is also tied to the bones. So it's got a couple elements, the secret society stuff, archaeology, questions around kind of the dignity of human remains, which is still an ongoing conversation. And then also, hopefully, a lot of twists and turns if I've done my job right.
Yes, which you have successfully, very, very well. I love this book. I love the first book. I love Sid. I love Sid's wife and her, her life and without talking too much about things that would give away elements of Blood Sisters, she has a beautiful community around her and also she's dealing with a lot of uncertainty, which I appreciate because I think as women, right, we're always there's so many elements we're juggling, especially as she's starting a family, but also our family of origin and in her case like her greater sort of indigenous family, and she's very protective of them. I the whole tell us a little bit without spoilers about this sort of like these rich this rich sort of society of
Yeah.
because I think that's such an incredibly interesting element. And as we know from the incredible, from news and the real world, these things actually exist. And I thought that
Oh,
was
yeah.
and you don't paint them as it's not black and white, which I really appreciated. There's there's
Yeah.
there's good people in this crazy organization as well as some baddies, if you will. So tell us
You
about
gotta have
that.
the baddies.
Gotta have the
Yeah, so
baddies.
so they're called the Founders Society, and the idea is that they are descendants from the Mayflower, which of course is one of the original boats that the members of the Narragansett and Wampanoag tribes would have seen coming over, right? And of course, founders is such a loaded phrase, but I mean, so much of our history we really aren't taught. We have all these assumptions. I talk to people all the time who are like, "Yeah, I didn't know the Thanksgiving story wasn't real." I mean, there's just so many kind of myths that have been told to sort of alleviate guilt or to justify taking of land. And I live now in New England, which is really interesting because I'm from Oklahoma. I'm being Oklahoma Cherokee. So my family was on the Trail of Tears. Like the land is new-ish to us. We had to kind of rebuild our lives there. Not here. Here, the Narragansett tribe, and I'm in Rhode Island, so that's the main tribe here. I mean, they have been on the same land time immemorial, is sort of what they say, which is before recorded record, right? So the same places, the same dances, the language. the plants, the medicines, like they have been in communion with the land for thousands of years. And that was such a, I think when you move to a place or you live in a place, you want to be connected, hopefully, to the land and to the people and to the history. And so as I was learning about it, I was really interested, first of all, in the story of the Narragansett, and how they were able to be resilient in the heart of colonialism, which is no small thing. There's also a sort of like a little bit of a, I would say, a resistance to, sorry, my dog, to
Yeah,
talk
no.
about some of these issues.
Yeah.
And so I really liked digging into that. And so the Founder Society is really an exploration for me of, okay, so what does it mean to be in a place where colonialism created our country, right? This idea that they came over and they found our country and they really, and I kind of did a lot of research about how initially it was treaties and then the treaties were stolen. And then the remains that are found in the camp are tied to the Great Swamp Massacre, which was just an attack and a stripping away of all the rights of the Narragansett tribe by colonists. So it sort of evolved into stealing the land.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, but how do you, right? Because we're thriller writers. It's like, okay, well, the history is interesting and it's important, but like, how do I capture what colonialism is now? And I kept coming back to like country clubs.
Yeah.
And it's not a knock against country clubs, but it's like, to me, the essence of it is people in the same socioeconomic bracket who will have like the same doctors and the same bankers and the same dentists. And they sort of have dinner together every week and they play sports together and their kids go to the same schools. And to me, so much of colonialism is like a protection of resources.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what if there's like a founder society? They're all sort of descended from that. And then the questions are, how do they protect themselves and continue the narratives that support their existence, really? And Bones came into it and remains because that's such a big conversation around Indigenous communities, because so many, especially universities, still have Indigenous remains and important objects and cultural artifacts within their, not even necessarily displayed, but in their on their shelves.
Mm.
And if it's private land, like they can just keep it. Like there's no, like there's a joke at the beginning when Sid is like talking to somebody who's at the camp and he's like, what are you going to call the archaeology police? Like what? There's no regulation,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
there is, but it's very light. I don't even know if there's a fine. And so I was like, kind of wanted to bring that into the founder society. And then, of course, in research, I mean, there's lots of secret societies. And being in New England, which is like the land of colleges,
Yeah.
and you look at like Yale, like there's like one story I read about the remains of Geronimo are in the possession of the Skull and Bones Club or whatever, and they have like rituals with the remains, and the family of Geronimo has sued to get those remains back, and they haven't. And then I talked to people privately about, and I heard some really terrible stories about remains that have been in schools and how they were used, even by like administration. So, it even though we have laws a little bit like NAGPRA and things like that, it's still an ongoing conversation. I mean, just while I was writing and researching, there were news articles popping up about remains being returned and people suing and having to do genetic testing to prove. So I
Wow.
try to kind of
Yeah.
create something that would capture that debate and also dig in a little bit into the structures that we are part of that sort of protect resources and protect privilege.
Right. And I think the fun thing about the Founders Society or Founders Club is that in some of them real I mean there's a sense, and I think this is true of all of us for whatever perspective we have, right? There's a sense of like they're doing that, some of them believe they're doing good, right?
Oh yeah.
They're philanthropists, and yet like you said they have this room, they have like a whole like room, just shelves and shelves and shelves of bones, in addition to sort of other antiquities. And it's like, I think until we sort of like, and this is what I love about reading fiction, right? And reading a joke, but particularly fiction, is that it's really meant to sort of help us shift our perspective. Like, oh wait, of course that doesn't make sense. Of course
Mhm.
that would seem wrong if you were that was your, those are your ancestors, and so you're thinking your, great however many great grandmothers sitting on a shelf in a, I
Yes.
mean, but until we sort of are able to read about that, and the way that you present this in the book, which is how the best, authors do it, is we're reading a story, we're invested in the characters, we're turning the pages because we want to find out, like, oh my God, what happened to those bones, and where is that girl, and what is this other guy, like the people who work at the club who are, who are who are especially those who are actually indigenous people, and you're like, how do you do this? And everybody,
Mhm.
of course, has their own story and their own perspective, and it's such a compulsive read. Which then at the end of it, I like to look back and be like, oh wait, so that was a perspective shift, and that's so valuable and also so fun. So thank you for putting that into the world, because I think this is how we. Because I'm never going to be an indigenous woman. Just like I'm never going to be like a black man. I'm never going to be an Asian. I mean, just right. The only way I understand that perspective is by reading. So.
Mhm.
I had so
Absolutely.
much fun with the book. So and then at the end of it, when you feel like you've learned something, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. So you must have, was the trigger for writing or the sort of seed for writing this book, was it about, the history of of exactly where you are? Because in the first book, we really are in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
She goes home to investigate a very personal crime. And then
Yeah.
so how did you find the seed for the story?
Yeah, so for me, it's always kind of those questions. And for Blood Sisters, it was returning to where I'm from. It was investigating the opening crime, which is a home invasion and a murder, is sort of tied to a real crime that happened in my community. And so it was going back as an adult and looking through the pages of history, really, and what happened, and thinking about how to capture that in a thriller.
Yeah.
With The Bone Thief, it was, okay, this is where I live now. What does it mean to live here? And, Sid is kind of like white presenting Cherokee like me. And so I could kind of be in her head and sharing New England, which was, again, kind of my experience of, wow, this is really interesting. Like, here's this tribe, and this tribe has had their land stolen, and people are living on that land very directly. It's a different feeling than what I'm used to in Oklahoma. So I wanted to explore it with, characters, and then also I hope to share a little bit about the Narragansett history because they are such a resilient tribe. And, I was really lucky when I first moved here. I started going to their August meeting, which is their powwow, which is open to the public. And it's the oldest continually recorded powwow in the country. 350, I was just there last month, 350 years they've been having it in the same place. More, I'm sure it's thousands of years, but recorded 350 years. And it's really powerful to kind of stand in that place and listen to the songs, and see the community celebrating that they are still there. And so part of it too, I hope anyway, was to share their history a little bit because it was so impressive to me. And also I felt a responsibility living here,
Yeah.
to kind of share it and connect with it. And it goes so far beyond, I think, this sort of founding of America, Thanksgiving classic Mayflower story, and really delves a little bit, I hope, into like the sachems who are the chiefs, like the female, a little bit about female leaders. And like there's whole books you can read about them. They're really incredible women who led the tribe through really tumultuous, scary times.
Yeah.
Or, some of the language around archaeology was so interesting. What we call those objects. My main character, Sid, kind of finds a new language for what
Yeah.
even the work that she's doing. And a lot of that I learned from the Tamaquag Museum, which is a museum in here that is run mostly by Narragansett folks. And really talks about objects and belongings is the word that they use, um, as a way of sharing history, but in a respectful way because they're leading that effort, which is a total sea change in archaeology. I mean, just think about how many times you've been in a museum and there's like bones
Yeah.
and important objects. I mean, mummies. Like I at the end of the book, I kind of talk about like I don't have a lot of answers for what we do other than asking questions, but like I don't really feel super comfortable in museums anymore. I mean, I used to think, oh, mummies are so cool, but now I'm like, is it cool to pull
Yeah.
a person out of the ground after their loved ones said prayers over them and said goodbye? And I don't know. I it's a hard question and it really runs contrary to what we're taught is okay.
It's so true. I love the word belongings too, right? Because it is like it's so many there's so many layers of it, right? Belonging to the earth, belonging to each other, belonging to your tribe and your family and your history. And then yeah, and then getting yanked or pulled apart is like is sort of disbelonging. I mean, it's like right, it's sort of
Mhm.
it's breaking something that should be very, honored and respected. I it's And the other thing I love about your books, and it's true of your earlier books too, before Blood Sisters, is that I feel like resilience. Resilience is such a sort of theme, and of all of your stories, and about and particularly women, because we are killer women. So it's not to say that there aren't incredible, resilient men in your stories as well, but the resilience of women, and I think, as you said, sort of the women in particularly like the sachems, and these are women who
Mhm.
had to be resilient because we are often still the primary caregivers. We are the ones, we are the family hub, the core of the family, and therefore of the tribe. Even if we're surrounded by male leaders too, we're the ones who sort of hold the family together. And Sid does that too. I mean, she's trying in this book, when I'm not gonna, if you haven't read Blood Sisters, not that they absolutely stand alone, but I think it's fun to read
Yeah.
them in order. But she's holding together a broader family than just sort of, you
Mhm.
know, she's her nuclear family as well as sort of her married family and those
Mhm.
pieces. And the family, like you said, the sort of the tribe and belonging. I love that there's this, and people say very, very, things that are sort of, very rude to you, which I think is because she's, white, as you said, she's sort of, white
Right, presenting, yeah.
right presenting. People say things to her as though she's not native and not indigenous, and then she's like, well, actually, and it's, I think we all do that, right? We make total assumptions about people and their history and their experience based on what they look like, which is, it's true of the founders too. I think
Mhm.
there's so many wonderful layers that you get to explore in this. And I guess, we were talking about, you said you don't, it's true, you don't have, and I think it's nice that you don't prescribe answers, because I don't think these questions are, they're not simple enough to be like, well, here's what we need to do.
Right.
I think that's true of the broader world at this moment, and maybe it always has been. But I did want to know, sort of, as coming from the perspective and everything you've learned as you've explored your history and you've learned so much more about Indigenous people than you probably knew, before you started working on these stories. What is one thing you sort of hope that non-Indigenous people sort of take away? Like, what's the message? I mean, that's also really hard to answer probably, but what is one thing that you wish
Yeah.
we could keep in mind as we move forward in the world?
Well, I think it's a thing that I am doing all the time, which is staying connected to the place I live. I mean, I think, well, it could be two tracks. I think connecting, I was thinking actually today, because I'm Irish as well. And I've been trying to learn a little bit more about my Irish heritage, particularly outside of colonialism, right? Because there's a whole other colonial thread within how of a conquered, I mean, Ireland is a conquered place.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think part of it is your own history. And I think connecting outside of whatever colonial structure probably oppressed your people and finding out more about some of the original traditions and visiting the place if you can. I mean, I think there's a real strength and connection that's possible when you go back into our own history. I think fighting against, in some ways, this sort of whitewashed American identity, which doesn't really mean anything.
Hmm.
It's sort of a conquered place. We're very young. We clearly don't know what we're doing. And, I think that there's answers that are thousands of years old that are much more connected to who we actually are in our DNA. Like generation after generation is much more connected than just the recent history of being an American. So I think that is a powerful thing. And then in addition to that, learning about where you live, learning about because wherever you are, there is a tribal relationship that's possible, and hopefully, they have a place where you can learn, a place where you can connect. They might have a powwow, they might have an art fair. In my community, the Narragansett tribe, they often have great community events, which helped inform the Bone Thief. Basket weaving one day. I learned about basket stamps, which was a part of the book, and like how
Yeah.
different families had different stamps and, during a certain period of time, they would stamp with beet juice, for example, or if so just like learning about the traditions of a place really feels good. It feels great to be connected in that way. And then just see where the involvement goes. I mean, I think, there's volunteer opportunities. I don't know, there's just, I think a lot of potential for connecting to the place that you live as well. And I've had some really incredible um, experiences learning about this place through the lens of the people who know it, so well.
And I think it's a way of connecting to one another too, even if we come from different places, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because wherever you live, th that's a community that we can build and hopefully sort of forge some, because there is some universality to all of us, right? And what we want in protecting our people and our, in the land and, the earth and each other. And that's a really nice way of like hopefully mending some gaps, which it seems like we have. Um, so many gaps. So we have nothing but gaps at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think thank you. That's lovely. And can you tell us a little bit? I mean, I know there's really exciting things that you're working on. I know a little bit more than the audience.
Yeah, more behind the scenes.
I
We
do.
probably won't go that deep. But
Cool.
so for sure, I have a new audiobook out.
Oh yeah, so okay, and then
Wicked
the
Wanted
widows.
Widows.
Tell everybody a little bit about so actually that's so funny too because that's such a different.
Oh
We're
my
just
God, I know.
supposed to talk about sort of like these are very like deep, thoughtful, contemplative books, and then you have the super fun. Tell us about the
Yeah.
widows.
So I'm a writer that needs palate cleansers. I really, especially with these books in particular, really take it out of me. I mean, Bone
Sure.
Thief probably took me almost 2.5 years, and it was very emotional.
Yeah,
I put a lot of pressure on myself to get things right, as I should have.
yeah,
And I was writing about a tribe that's not my own, which is like just a very stressful thing to do and vulnerable. Um, so when I am done with that book, I have a natural like, oh my God, get me out of here. I got to do something crazy. So the Widows books, which started in like 2021, we just had our third one come out. They start in audio and then they go to print. Um, but I co-author them, and they are about four women set in the 80s, set in Providence. They're definitely campy. I mean, they're thrillers. There's, a murder mystery. But the new one was really fun because it takes us for the first time out of Providence and we go to Boston and then we also go to Salem. So it's a little witchy.
hmm
And, so much, my books are very truth and fiction. And I really forced that on my co-authors. And we did, tours of the Salem witch trials and we went and did research in a couple different spots in Salem to try to capture some of the real history there. And so, I mean, it's very fast paced because
Yes.
it's basically they're chasing a gold, like they're chasing a hidden treasure.
Yeah.
And so we wanted it to feel I'm like very Da Vinci Code right now. So we wanted it to feel a little bit like uncovering, this clue and this step and like a raucous long weekend basically is how long the time frame is. So that just came out and
They're so fun. And the premise of the first one, right, was they're just four women married to big time attorneys who all die in a plane accident, and then they have to sort of like figure out what's going on with the firm because of course their entire lives are invested in it, and there's some things that were going on behind the scenes, and it was so fun. Plus, it's really fun. I know if you want to go back to Killer Women, we had all four of you guys on
we
the
did.
show for
Yeah.
the very first book. And I know there's also a little bit of I've heard a little news about maybe they're going to bring this to screen. Tell us about that because
Yeah.
that would be so fun.
Yeah, so Amazon Studios is really excited about it. We have an incredible showrunner, and she's got great ideas. And I mean, TV stuff is always a long shot,
Yeah.
but we all like I feel like we're in the best position possible. I think we might know by the end of the year if it's going to move forward. And I love the showrunner in particular is like really into this idea of a multi-generational women's story. And her vision for it, I think, really connects to the heart of the books. And so I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, you never know, but
No, you never, and
it's got a good
yeah.
chance.
It's been fun. I mean, we've seen it happen for Friends, and it's so fun to
Oh
see
my God.
when these things become, when you've seen a book and then you watch it develop into a series. And what you mentioned, what I think is also so true, is that it's really fun when when the writers of the show kind of take off in a different, I mean, they're going to take the heart of your book and then they're going to do wild and crazy things with it, which is also really fun.
Yeah, I love their interpretation. Like The Haunting Wives with Meg Cobb is like the perfect example of taking a fantastic book and then
Yes.
just building a whole extra world. It was so well done and
Yeah,
so
it's
fun.
so fun. Yeah, it's been super fun. So, okay, so we have that going on, and there's going to be a book four.
Yeah, so The Widows, we have one more book in the contract, which will focus a little bit more on the character I write, Crystal, her little happy ending. And then we'll see. I don't know. Maybe the TV show will be a big hit and we'll do a bunch more. But for now, we're only kind of rounding out the series with Crystal's book. And then I'm working on two books right now. One of them is a sexy Da Vinci Code with speculative elements. I'm like 60,000 words in it. I am having the best time. It's an archaeologist again, and her
I
mom
love
goes
that.
missing, and she's kind of hopping all over the world to try to track her down. And there's like the Gnostic Gospels, which are the books that were left out, and there's archangels and biblical characters.
I
I don't know.
love that. And
It's
plus,
wild.
I just, what is something so magical when you love the book that you are working on? Because that is really like, this is a really hard job. It's the hard, it's sort of the hard, I mean, I'm sure there are harder jobs, but it seems really hard. But when you love what you're doing, it's kind of magical. And then you have another book.
Yeah, so the other one that I'm tinkering with is I'm calling it right now the Cherokee House, and it is about an underground poker player who's on the run from the Kansas City mob, and which I love poker, so it's been really fun to think about a poker player. And there's actually some philosophy behind poker that I really like talking about.
Tell me.
Well, I mean, some of it is practical about like patience, and then some of it is about reading a room, reading a situation, knowing yourself. Like poker is very psychological, and you have to constantly be observing your behavior, your reactions, and other people's reactions. And then there's like this book, The Tao of Poker. There's a lot of people who get very philosophical about it, but it is a thriller. And so she is on the run from the Kansas City mob. And after her dad passes away, they have one kind of asset, which is their family's Cherokee allotment land and house in rural Oklahoma, which is very much based on my own family's real land and house. But there are ties to a local serial killer with the house. So she kind of has to solve the crime, and the suspect is her next door neighbor. And
I have
that is
read
also
part of that book and it is super exciting. It's
yeah,
really fun.
that was so nice of you
Oh,
to
it's so
read.
fun. Are you kidding? I'm like, bring it. You're like, wait, serial killer, mob, poker player? Yeah, give it to me right now. That's so fun. So,
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm kind of just having fun, and I'm really excited for book tour too for the Bone Thief. I'm gonna be hopping around and getting to meet readers, and I'm excited to, I don't know, there's such an energy to a book tour. I mean, it's draining, but every time I'm sort of shocked when people show up, you
mhm,
know? It's
right,
like,
right.
wow, you just want to talk about this thing that was in my brain. So anyway, I'm so excited. I got a bunch of like stickers and art prints and bookmarks. It's a whole thing. So
I love so
check out my IG and come
yeah, I was
hang
gonna
out
say
with me.
tell our listeners where to find you on so they can figure out when your tour dates are and so they don't miss you and also so they can check out all the other books because you
Yeah,
got
so
big
I'm
stuff.
always on Instagram. It's a problem. So I'm at Vanessa Lillie on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, a little bit on TikTok. And then I have a newsletter that comes out, I don't know, every 6 weeks or so. You can sign up on my website. But I love connecting with people. And
And your
like I said,
website is Vanessa Lillie.
Lillie.com. Yes.
And Lily, for those of you who are listening and not watching us, is Lillie.
Yes.
Vanessa spelled that way. And if you are watching us, then you can see that Vanessa and I actually coordinated our outfits today to match her gorgeous book, The Bone Thief. And I love the covers they've done for these books. So,
It's funny, you know, it's like either the cover's easy or the title's easy. And this one, the title was the same and the cover took forever. And this one, the title took forever, but the cover was almost, I mean, it was in the inbox and I was like, that's great. Looks good. I'm in.
yeah, it's beautiful. So they've done a great job.
Yeah, thank
So fun.
you.
Well, all things Vanessa Lillie, it's going well. And the other thing I love about Vanessa Lillie, which I don't know that if you ever have an opportunity to listen to her as she's talking about astrology and tarot, she's incredibly spiritual, and it's super fun to just hear her talk about what the universe is giving us because I think if we listen, right, there's a lot of incredible messages. And it can also help us, like I was before we started recording, complaining about being a little feeling discombobulated. And she's like, yes, so the reason you feel that way is because we're in the middle of eclipse season or
Yes, it's
and I was
there's
like,
always
oh,
something going on energetically.
yeah,
And it's fun to tap into that. And it's not new. It's a very old way of looking at the
yeah,
world. Again, it's a reconnection to way things have been done, and just recently we view it differently. But historically, the stars, the planets, that energy is deeply connected to us.
yeah. It really it is always really powerful and reassuring and enlightening when when you and maybe Vanessa should start auctioning off a tarot reading because for some philanthropy because I feel like that
Yeah.
would be really, I mean, that's incredible. So anyway, God, so obviously you can tell Vanessa's a dear friend, so it's always fun to get a chance to talk to you online. I'm a huge fan of Sid Walker and the series and everything you've got going on. So
You
thank you for,
too. I am locked and loaded for Pinky Swear, so
oh, thanks. I'm super, super excited about that.
that's gonna be amazing. And thanks for this incredible podcast. You do so much for authors. You always have, but this is a labor of love that's incredible. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for joining us today on Killer Women with Vanessa Lillie, and we will see you next time. Bye.